Welcome to Knowledgeable Aging. I'm your host, Jason Kotar. Join us today to talk about top 10 ways to stay active and independent is Heidi Huynh. Heidi has spent years working with adults from their 50s into their hundreds in a variety of settings, including their own homes, independent living communities, assisted living, and skilled nursing settings, with a purpose of increasing safety and independence so they can continue to spend time doing what they love and fulfilling their purpose. She is an occupational therapist, certified therapeutic recreation specialist, and entrepreneur, striving to share with the world that with the right tools and support, anyone can continue living a full life worth living as she helps people to overcome barriers and rise to new heights.
So, like Jason said, my name is Heidi. I'm an occupational therapist, and it is my mission to help aging adults just maximize their independence and safety so they can continue to do what they love. I've seen too many people lose function too soon just because they didn't know that there was another way. So that's why I'm here today to just spread information about what we can do to keep ourselves active and healthy and independent as we continue to age, ourselves and loved ones as well. So we're just going to kind of jump right into it. And we'll talk about the top 10 ways to stay active and independent. We're going to go from 10 to 1. So here we go. Number 10 is to get therapy early. So a lot of people get therapy, physical therapy, occupational therapy, speech therapy after a doctor orders it, maybe after an injury or an accident and something happens and they get therapy to get them back to where they were. But you can ask for therapy as well. We don't have to wait for something to happen to go and get those services. That's just often how things are done. So like I said, you don't have to wait for it to be recommended. You can ask for it and just work on strengthening those skills before something bad happens. Maybe you're right now feeling a little off on your balance, or daily activities like getting dressed or getting in and out of the shower harder than they used to be. These are things that we can work on with therapy, and we don't have to wait for something to happen to get those services. We can strengthen those skills now. So a lot of people I've seen don't really exactly know what each of these therapy disciplines do. So I'm just going to run through those really quickly for you. This is a picture of my team a year ago. And so there's me, a speech therapist, and a PT assistant. And so physical therapy is usually the most well-known, and they work on things like your balance, your strength, walking and gait pattern, maybe helping with using a walker or a cane and finding out what's best in terms of that. They help with pain reduction a lot of times, knees, hips, feet, all of that stuff, and just general strengthening as well. So that's physical therapy. Occupational therapy, which is what I do, we work on just helping you do what you want and need to do. So it's more function based. So maybe a physical therapist helps you walk, and an occupational therapist will help you walk into the bathroom and do what you need to do there. That's kind of how I explain the similarities and differences between the two of those. But we help with all of our daily functions. So getting dressed, going to the bathroom, taking a shower, cooking our meals, feeding our pets, like I said, anything that we want and need to do throughout the day, managing our medication. We sometimes work on cognition and helping support people in that way. So if we're thinking function and what we're doing, it's not occupation as in job, but occupation is in our daily occupations, which is just, like I said, what we want and need to do. So we overlap in some ways. We can work on balancing and strengthening. We do more upper extremity, while PT kind of does both upper and lower. So those are just some things to think about. And then speech therapy is not just speech. OT and speech, kind of the names, it's hard to understand exactly what we do. So they work a lot with cognition also, and they do voice and projection for people who have a hard time speaking, and swallowing. So if someone's having a difficult time swallowing what they need, or maybe aspirating, it's going down the wrong way, they help with techniques to support that. So I just wanted to kind of share that. So if you recognize yourself or someone having difficulty in any of those areas, that's when we can reach out to therapy. So if you're thinking, yeah, maybe I should get some therapy before, things progress, you can either reach out to your doctor and ask them for a referral. You can reach out to therapy and they can kind of direct you where to go in that way. So number 10 is to get therapy early, not wait for it to happen to you. Number 9 is social interaction and just engaging in your community. our social skills, as we use them, we're engaging our cognition as well. So as we're speaking to others, looking at others, communicating with others, there's a cognitive component. And if you don't use it, you lose it. We talk about that a lot, and that applies to every situation, cognition and social interactions as well. And us as humans, we are social beings, and that doesn't mean that we're all a social butterfly. Some people may enjoy being by themselves, and that's just fine. But having someone to talk to, whether it's a big family, whether it's one person, whether it's a friend or someone to communicate with, is really important, just to keep ourselves strong in many ways than one. So this is my encouragement to you, to talk to a friend today, and just engage in that social interaction, and that it keeps us stronger in more ways than we know, and will keep us active and independent as well. So number 8 is exercise, physical activity. I like to call it movement. So a lot of people sometimes, well, really at any stage in life, some people are like, oh, I don't want to exercise, that's not for me. So I like to call it movement, because it's so important to be moving our bodies each and every day in one way or another. So this may be for you going for a long walk or going for a short walk. It may be 30 minutes of intense exercise every day, or it may be just moving your arms or moving your legs while you're sitting on the couch or standing in the kitchen waiting for the microwave to beep. But I would encourage everyone to create some sort of simple routine, something to keep you accountable and keep you active and keep you moving each day. And if you're not quite sure what that should look like for you, or you have pain when you have movement and exercise, that's when you can reach out to a professional, a doctor, a therapist, and ask for support and find out what would be best for you. So I'll just go through a few examples of things that I like to encourage people if we're looking at simple movement. So say you're going and you're sitting down on the couch, and you feel like you're going to be there a while. Let's just stand up and sit down maybe 3 to 5 times before you sit on the couch and stay there. And that'll keep your legs strong. It'll keep your arms strong as you push up. If, like I said, you're waiting for the microwave to beep and you're standing at the kitchen counter, if you're holding on to the counter, you can stand up on your tippy toes and go back down. And I say hold on to the counter because this one can be kind of a balance exercise as well. And like I said before, if you don't know what's right for you, not all of these activities and movements are right for everyone, but these are just some simple ones to keep you moving throughout the day. I also like, if you're sitting in a chair with arms, that's the picture that I have there of me a while ago. I'm pushing down on those armrests, and that's strengthening my arms, and those are important to keep you scooting around and standing up and moving and keeping our arms strong in that way. And that's just me sitting in a chair, and I push down, and even if you don't lift the bum up, even if you don't go anywhere, the act of pushing is strengthening that muscle. So I like to just hold it for about 3 to 5 seconds and then relax, and then do it again and push down and hold it and relax. The guy in the middle you can see is using weights. So me, in the first one, I'm using a chair but no equipment. You can have an exercise routine, with the weights or some sort of system. And the one on the other side is one of my clients, actually. She's doing a balance exercise. So she's standing with one foot directly in front of the other. And it's actually pretty challenging. So she's definitely holding on, and we're there to support her. But that's just to show that we don't need a bunch of fancy equipment. We don't have to go to a gym. We can just be where we're at and use what we have in our home to get some sort of movement every single day. And movement, it keeps our body strong, it keeps our muscles strong, but it also keeps our brain strong, because our brain is telling us how to move and what to do, right? So movement is just super important. This is a huge component to the whole. If you don't use it, you lose it. So we want to use it. Number 7 is using community resources. And there's probably a ton more out there than you would think. Since I've been kind of working on my business and working with aging adults, I've been really trying to learn about the different community resources that are out there. And my mind has just been blown on how much is out there and how much people don't know about. So some examples are going to senior centers. Yeah, they have activities, but they also have outreach and different resources connected through them as well. Some local libraries will have resources for aging adults. There's local area agencies on aging. So they're, I think per county or per state, there's There's a bunch of them around, so we look up what's close to you, and they can provide assistance with financial difficulties that you may be having, or transportation if you need help to get to doctors or whatnot. Sometimes there's resources to help with that transportation, or getting the meals you need if you're not able to go out and get your meals or cook your meals. So if you're active and you're independent in so many areas, but you need help with something, there's probably some sort of community resource that can help you and to help you stay strong in those areas. We have a retirement connection guide in our local area. So it's this little booklet that's passed out around, and there's just a ton of resources in there on therapies or other resources or communities and buildings and whatnot. So I would just encourage you, if there's something that you're kind of struggling with and you wish you had some help for, but you don't really know if it exists or how to go about getting it, to look into your local area agency on aging or other places that may be able to provide those community resources. Because like I said, there's way more out there than we would ever think that there would be. Number 6 is following medical advice. So we want to communicate with our doctors, and we want to advocate for ourselves, but also allow what they are prescribing us to work. So if we don't talk to our doctors about what's going on, if we're not communicating, they're not going to know, right? So we need to advocate for ourselves. If something isn't working, if something just doesn't feel right, you need to let them know so that they know what's going on. But if they maybe provide you a new medication and you don't feel like it's working, we don't want to just stop taking the medication, because then we won't know if it's not working because we didn't give it enough time, or if it's not working because you stopped taking it, or because it's not working, one or the other. We won't know what it is if we just stop taking it, right? So we need to follow the advice that we're given, but then if we're not feeling right about it, make sure that we're advocating for that and communicating with our doctors as well. Same with if they advise us on nutrition or health in that way, or on movement and exercise. Doctors don't just throw stuff around for the fun of it. Usually it's going to benefit. And like I said, if it doesn't, that's when we communicate and talk to them about that. So we want to make sure that we're following medical advice, and that will help us continue to be active and independent as well. Number 5 is a big one. It's a 3-in-1. And it's just fueling your body with proper nutrition, hydration, and sleep. So every spring, my backyard, every living thing just like shoots up out of the ground, and one day there's nothing, and the next day I have an entire weed forest out there, I'm pretty sure. But it gets the rain and the sunshine that it needs to grow, and that's what my weeds need to grow. Our bodies, what we need to flourish is nutrition, hydration, and sleep. So nutrition is so much more than just disease prevention. Like, we're told a lot, like, oh, we can't eat a ton of fatty fried foods because then that's going to lead us towards a heart attack or a stroke. And we know that, even though they're often the most delicious foods. But it's not just to prevent that, it's also all of the benefits that good nutrition gives our body. So it builds muscle, it heals our wounds, it provides us with energy. So if we have an injury and we're not having the proper nutrition, it's going to be a lot harder for our body to heal that injury. Our skin and our skin integrity and the strength of our skin all has to do with our nutrition as well. So it's super important. And when we think about nutrition and what that means and what we should focus on, it's one of those things that we know is important, but we don't always know where to start or what to do. And I'm right there with you on that. I definitely could be more nutritious than I am in my meal planning. So I was talking to a dietitian friend of mine recently, and she said to just focus on adequate protein, getting an adequate amount of fiber and antioxidants, which come from our fruits and vegetables. And when we look at fruits and vegetables, the deeper the color, the red, the orange, the purple, there's purple vegetables, right? Those deep colors is what gives you the most nutrients. So I was kind of laughing because a couple weeks ago we were camping with my parents and we cut up an apple, and then we we had sliced it, and my mom ate it, but she ate the inside and left the skin of the apple, which is the red part, right? And it was right after I had talked to this dietitian. And so I just started laughing because I was like, Mom, you didn't eat the most nutritious part of the apple. And I mean, if we don't know, then we don't know, right? So just incorporating those into our diet, getting the protein we need. Sometimes as people start aging, they have a loss of appetite for one reason or another. So sometimes it's just eating enough and making sure that we get those nutrients we need, like I said, to provide us the energy to allow us to continue to build muscle to keep our body strong. Hydration is another thing that we all know we need to be hydrated, right? They say drink your water, but why? Have you ever thought about what water does for us? Why do we need hydration? So it transports those nutrients and our oxygen to and from our cells. It detoxifies our body. It cushions our joints. There's a ton of things that water is doing within us that we don't even know about. And by the time we reach age 80, we lose about 20% of the water in our bodies. So we just, in general, have less water to do that. And then also, as we get older, we start to lose our thirst response. So we're not feeling as thirsty. And so we're often not drinking as much. So that's why it's so easy and common for someone who's getting older to become dehydrated, which is not something you want, because then that leads to weakness and disorientation and dizziness and falls, and we don't want to deal with any of that. So everyone is different, and some people are on medications or have conditions that require something different, but the average person should be drinking 8 ounce glasses of water a day. So that comes to about half a gallon. And so it's important to just kind of track ourselves throughout the day about, are we drinking enough water, not just coffee or soda or milk. We need to have some water and some hydration. So whether it works for you to split it up throughout the day and have a glass for each meal and for a few snacks, or to carry a water bottle with you, whatever it takes, find something. I know for me, I drink really well out of some water bottles and not out of others. So I need to plan for myself, okay, I need to carry this with me today so I know I get enough water. So that's just something to think about, and those are the reasons why we need water in our system. And then sleep is what allows us to recharge, right? We need our sleep, and our sleep habits and our sleep situations change a lot over time. As we get older, we are more susceptible to waking up more easily, but we should be able to fall back asleep. And if we can't, that's when we want to look into, okay, what's going on? What remedies can we find for this? Something is happening that's keeping us from sleeping, and sleep is so, so important. We need to figure it out. And I actually have a whole other presentation just on sleep. So that's a story for another day. But there are things that we can do, whether it be, limit our water intake before going to bed so we don't have to get up and use the bathroom so much at night, to limit our alcohol at night. Some people think alcohol helps them sleep, but it doesn't actually help you stay asleep. Or limiting our screen time. If we've heard about that blue light and the screens not being great before we go to sleep, maybe it's coming up with a routine and a ritual to prepare our body for sleep. A lot of times when we have babies, we rock them, we read to them, they have some warm milk, and then they go to bed. So why don't we keep up those rituals for ourselves, whether it be meditating or calming ourselves to some music or whatnot, but figuring out some way, maybe creating a sleep schedule, getting up at the same time and going to bed at the same time every day. And that takes time to get used to. But those are just some tidbits of things we can do to help us get better sleep so we can properly fuel our body with this nutrition, hydration, and sleep. That was a big one. Number 4 is addressing hearing and vision problems. And it may be our loved ones, our friends and family who notice this most. I know a lot of people who start to have a little bit of hearing loss, start to have a little bit of vision loss, but they don't want to admit it because they don't want that to show that they're getting old, and they resist that. But rather than, it's a thing of life. It's something that we can't control. So rather than resisting, if we accept it and address it by getting those glasses or getting the hearing aids, not the ones on the screen. I couldn't find a good picture. They're much, much more concealed ones that aren't so bulky. But not being able to see where we're going and not being able to hear warning signs in our environment are huge factors that may lead to falls. And like I said before, we don't want falls. We want to avoid those falls. So addressing hearing and vision is huge. That's key. Number 3 is my favorite on the list, and that is having a hobby or a passion. So doing what you love to do. And it brings so much more than just a smile, right? It brings a smile, which is good for us in itself. There's been studies on that, like just make yourself smile. But there's a lot of benefits that happen by participating in something that we don't realize. So take gardening, for example, these 2 pictures here. If you're gardening at a raised garden bed, you're standing up. So not only are you getting the vitamin D, you're breathing in the fresh air, you're smelling the scent of the flowers, keeping your senses strong. We're also working on standing balance. We're working on standing tolerance. We're working on functional reach as we're reaching across that garden bed. We are working on fine motor control and strength as we're planting those flowers. We're working on our cognitive thinking and planning skills of where do the seeds go, where do the flowers go, and when do I need to come out and water them, and how am I harvesting them. So all of these things we don't think we're working on, right? We're just doing what we love to do. We're gardening, but our bodies are strengthening all of those aspects while we're doing it. I also like to give the example of if someone likes going to a knitting group, they're getting that social aspect by being in the group, right? They have the cognitive aspect of counting the stitches, of planning the pattern, and they're doing hand strengthening and hand navigation and mobility and a lot of fine motor control in that. So whenever you're out doing something that you love to do, we don't notice all the other aspects of it, but it's building us, it's keeping us strong in so many other ways. So I love to go out and play soccer, and that's how I love to get my exercise. I don't do it very often anymore, but when I'm playing soccer, I can run so much more than if I just go on the treadmill and run, or if I just go for a run down the street. Because when I'm running, I'm thinking like, oh man, I really don't like running. But when I'm playing soccer, I'm running to get the ball, but that's not what I'm thinking about. I'm thinking about the fun that I'm having playing the sport. So it's just keeping our skills strong by doing what we're loving to do. And it helps us to live our life rather than watch life go by. And there are some times that we can't do the same things that we used to be able to do. And rather than just giving up at that point is when we would want to find a new way to modify it and do it in some other way. So another example of sports, I played sports growing up, and they get pretty competitive in high school. And then I went to college and I played intramural sports. So when I played intramural softball, it wasn't the same. You don't steal bases. There's not the same competitive level, but it was a heck of a lot better than not playing at all. So sometimes we do have to adjust, and it's across the lifespan that we adjust the activities that we do, but continue to do something that brings you purpose, continue to do something that you're passionate about and that's fun for you. So that's number 3. Number 2 is to help each other. Know your neighbors. How many of you know your neighbors? It's different, living in a big neighborhood. If you live in like a community where people are nearby, then that's especially important. But it is really great to know the people around you and know your neighbors. And I'm sure you've heard before, in giving we receive, but we all have special skills and we all have special gifts that are different than the people around us. We were just talking before we started about technology and computer skills, and that's not my forte. That's my husband, and so he helps me with that. And we're all here to help each other in one way or another. So by knowing your neighbors, you're able to help them, and in helping them, you're strengthening your skills in whatever it may be that you're helping them with. Sharing the resources. Our skills and our gifts are meant to be used, and so we're able to use those by helping each other. And by doing that, it just keeps us active and keeps us strong and keeps us going that way. And number 1 is very important. Don't be afraid to ask for help. So a lot of times people are worried that, oh, I'm getting older, or let's say they live, independently by themselves, and they're worried that if they ask for help, someone's going to think that they need to move to assisted living, or if they're in assisted living, that they're going to have to move to skilled nursing. And that's not necessarily the case. Just because you need help doesn't mean you're not okay how you are and what you're doing. But asking for help is a sign of wisdom. It's not a sign of weakness. It's showing that you recognize where difficulties are and that you're ready to overcome those difficulties with this help that you're receiving. If we conceal our difficulties and we kind of hide them and push them below, we're not going to get assistance with that, and it's going to continue to get worse, and then something may happen that will require you to move somewhere else or have more support than you would want. So just like we talked about getting therapy early, ask for help early. It's okay to ask for something and to get that assistance and then to overcome that and continue on. So just super important. I'm gonna kind of, and I know I breezed by those really quickly. I don't know how long it's been. I feel like I'm talking quickly. So we'll just go through those again real quick. Top 10 ways to stay active and independent. We want to get therapy early. If something's bothering you, if something's bugging you, if you're not the same as you used to be and you want to strengthen those skills either physically, cognitively, functionally, and the things that you're doing, reach out and ask to get some therapy, whether it's PT, OT, speech, and work on that. Number 9 is social interaction. Engage with those around you, whether it's one person or 10 people or 1,000 people. Be interacting with someone to just keep those social skills strong, and to just, if we're by ourselves, no one knows, when something happens, when we might need help. So stay engaged with others around us that way. Number 3 is exercise or movement. Move your body in one way or another every day. Even just touching your fingers to your thumb, or like I said, standing up and sitting down. It doesn't need to be a lot. If you like it to be a lot, we can make it a lot. And if you need some support, again, you can reach out to therapy or your doctor or someone to find the right movement routine for you. Number 7, using community resources. There's a ton out there. And if you're looking for something, it probably is out there. It's just all about finding it. And if you need support in finding it, there's always someone who will help you out that way too. Just reach out to your community center or someone else who knows more about those resources and can guide you. Number 6, follow medical advice. Advocate for yourself, but do what the doctor says and work with them together to see what's best for you. Number 5, fuel your body. We need nutrition, we need hydration, we need to get our sleep. So let's make sure we're monitoring that and making those happen. Number 4, adjust hearing and vision problems. Make sure that we're able to see and we're able to hear. It's so important. And also, I didn't talk about this before, but if we're not hearing, we're not getting that social communication with others and that cognitive aspect of it as well. So it's just really important to adjust that, and it'll help us be able to more fully live just like the other one, rather than watch things move by. Just like number 3, having a hobby, a passion. I also like to add in a purpose. Do something that you love to do something that's meaningful to you. It'll just, that's what's going to keep you going. If a barrier does try to jump in your way, if you're walking along and there's something blocking you, if an accident happens, having that hobby and passion and purpose is what's going to give you the motivation to really overcome anything you need to overcome to get back to doing that. So engage in what you're doing. Don't just let it fly by. Number 2 is help each other, know your neighbors, use your skills and gifts that you have. Number 1, don't be afraid to ask for help. It's a sign of wisdom, not a sign of weakness. And those are my top 10 ways to stay active and independent.
Wonderful stuff, Heidi.
Thank you.
Couple questions.
Yeah.
Number 10, get therapy early. Does that mean asking for therapy, you have to get a prescription from your doctor?
So you don't have to. It depends on the state, and it depends on insurance, and it depends on a lot of things. So some do require a prescription, but sometimes you can reach out to therapy and then they'll help you get that prescription. Sometimes you can start, and then, so like for Medicare, I see people who have Medicare Part B, which is like the outpatient Medicare. I can start working with them and I don't need a prescription from the doctor in Washington State, but I do need to have their plan of care signed. So I would still communicate with the doctor and send them to that, but it does not need to be initiated by the doctor.
Yeah, I was just gonna follow up with that about the, especially OT, occupational therapist, if that's covered by Medicare or health insurance.
Yes, it is. So all insurances have their things that they will and won't cover, but with Medicare, if what we're doing is skilled and medically necessary, they will cover it. And there used to be like a Medicare cap, and that doesn't exist anymore. So if there's not a number where we have to stop, there's just a point to where if we get past this threshold, We just need to make sure that it's still skilled and medically necessary. So there's some things that it might not cover. So for me, I like to work with people in going to the grocery store and going grocery shopping. If that's something like, say, they're returning home from the hospital and they're having a hard time doing that, I'll go with them to work on those skills and practice those things. But not to get too technical with it, but with Medicare, we have to see them in a clinic or in the home. So if we're out in the community, they technically wouldn't cover that aspect of it. So if someone wanted to work on that, it could be kind of a combo of, Medicare and private pay, or they would just adapt the task and practice it in the home, and then Medicare will cover it because we're in the home. So there's ways to work it, and some places accept, different things like any insurance. But yes,
Yeah.
it is covered. Long answer to your question.
That's good. Last question. Is the marketing that you as an occupational therapist have, is that directed to patients specifically or to patients and caregivers? How does somebody find an occupational therapist?
Yeah, that's a great question. All of the above, and it depends on the person and the company and what's happening. So I like to talk to the people who, the aging adult themselves. I try to reach out to them as much as I can, and I can help them in that way. I also do caregiver education and caregiver training, and so I try to reach out to the families of the people who might need therapy, or the caregivers of the people who they're helping. So it works both ways. I also reach out to, you know, doctors who, I mean, they know what the things are, but just letting them know what we do. And so if they have someone who might benefit, then they can kind of direct them differently. So all of the above, in a way. We with occupational therapy, we definitely work with clients, strengthening their skills. We 100% definitely work with caregivers, teaching them how to safely care for their client and continue carryover, and families as well, whoever the caregiver is. For sure, that's
Excellent.
part of it. Mhm.
Very good. Well, how can people find you?
People can find me by, I'm trying to get all over the place. So you can go to my website, weagewithpurpose.com, and that is kind of that's where all my online resources are. I have a bunch of handouts, home safety tips, fall prevention tips, different things like that, tips for having a safe, confident shower, just a bunch of free handouts you can find there. I have some courses, and I have an ebook on adaptive equipment and helpful tools that can help you do your daily things more easily. So that's on there. So that's kind of guided towards the online resources. I have courses and programs as well. Or www.ascendtherapypnw.com. And that's more specific for the people local in Washington if they wanted to have therapy services, what that would look like. But if anyone's interested, and what that would look like in their own state, they could, of course, you can go to my website and check it out, and then reach out to someone in your area. You can definitely email me. It's Heidi, Heidi, at ascendtherapypnw, as in Pacific Northwest.com. Or you can go ahead and give me a call or send a text message if you have a question. I'd be more than happy to help. That's 253-900-2295. So like I said, there's a bunch of online resources and different ways. I am on Instagram and Facebook as well, and YouTube, doing some demonstration videos and whatnot. So you can find links to those if you go to the weagewithpurpose.com and then click on the free resources. That'll show you all of my social media accounts as well, if you want to just kind of follow along and learn tips and tricks as we go.
Excellent. Excellent. Thank you again, Heidi. As far as Knowledgeable Aging, you can go to knowledgeableaging.com. You can see all of our upcoming and archive webinars. You can go to our YouTube page. We encourage you to subscribe. We update that several times per month. If podcasts are your thing, you can find us on Apple Tunes, Spotify, etc. Till next time, I'm your host, Jason Kotar. This is Knowledgeable Aging.